Hello there, and welcome to the Poppycock podcast, where the topics don't matter and we're not experts. Today, once again, joined by my Shanghai brother, Adam.
Yo.
He is about to take us on a magical journey through what I have a passing knowledge of. It is sort of a relaunch of, X-Men. It's a jumping in point for the new X-Men comic books. He has a book big enough to murder at least a small child, potentially a teenager with. It's hefty. It's really great artwork from what I can see.
Oh, yeah.
There's an entire alien language invented for it, and at some point, two islands have sex. So, with that lead up, Adam, what is this?
So this is the X-Men relaunch by Jonathan Hickman called House of X and Powers of 10. So basically,
I like the logo for the X-Men.
Yeah, and Jonathan Hickman, from what I understand, created the logo because apparently, on top of being a comic writer, he's also a graphic designer.
Well, I like him even more now.
Yeah. So to give us a bit of a background, X-Men had been kind of off the table for Marvel for a while because, and this was confirmed by Hickman himself as well as others, that because
Fox
Disney
owned them.
Yeah, Fox owned them, and Disney and everyone was feuding with them.
And they didn't want to make them too popular.
Yeah, so they were like, we're not doing any Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four literally left. Like, you almost never saw the characters at all for a while. X-Men had been kind of shuttered around, had done some... They had some stuff written about them, but they were okay. And they weren't really a mainstay at Marvel like they used to be. And then finally, of course, Disney bought the rights.
They swung their big money around, right?
Yeah. Mickey
Just
Mouse
give it to us.
just came in and said, ha ha!
Oh, I just want to go ahead and take those X-Men right off your hands. You can keep ESPN.
Yeah, basically.
We take Hulu, though.
So, when they relaunched the X-Men at Marvel, they got Jonathan Hickman, who had been a big writer there.
I know this is going to sound weird, but the guy who voiced Jim Gordon in Arkham Knight, and who I just saw on Community, he played a professor named Hickey, and so when you said Hickman, I'm just imagining this old, I draw a picture of a duck, and publishers are interested. And now, just so you know, for the rest of it, I'm just going to imagine this peanut-headed man talking about how he can't quite draw a duckbill correctly.
I saw a picture of Hickman once, and he has, the long 70s hair and the mustache and
I'm going to go with my
goatee.
version, because it's more absurd.
And the glasses, yeah. So they got Hickman, and he had been at Marvel before, and one of the mainstays of Hickman's writing is the fact that with Hickman, if you're going to read him, you have to be prepared to read years of material leading up to something huge.
And it's intimidating, though.
It's intimidating, but it's also kind of cool to know that, okay, what I read 2 years ago is going to matter in
That's
2
true.
years.
Well, it's scary if you're someone like me who took a break from comic books, and you're like, I'd like to catch up, but I have no idea where to jump in and not feel totally lost.
Well, you're in luck because this only came out last year. So there have only been, and because of the pandemic, there have only been 9 issues of X-Men released. So there's not a lot to catch up on.
It's hard to find a point where you can step in and not have so much stuff from the past thrown at you. You're like, remember issue 875 when Mystique turned into a piggy and flew to the moon?
Well, and that's another great thing is that he doesn't get rid of all of previous X-Men history. He references stuff that happened. The biggest thing is when Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, said at the end of House of M, no more mutants.
Yeah.
And then that got reversed at the end of Avengers vs. X-Men.
See, I remember that stuff.
See, that stuff gets referenced, but it's not like you need to know
the details of it.
Decades of X-Men history. Basically, if you know, okay, X-Men have fought Apocalypse, they fought Magneto, they've had disagreements, they've had Genosha, Sentinels, all that stuff, you're good.
Okay.
So you don't need to be an X-Men lore expert.
Good.
And he lays a lot of groundwork in this.
I wasted all of my deep memory on video games and Star Wars, so I have to catch back up on X-Men.
So basically,
do they grow X-Men now? And what's up with Professor X's sexy cat?
So basically, Professor X wears this all the time now.
I've seen him in comic art with that. It's not flattering to him. It's a little sensual.
So that this whole book has this sensual...
It's a very sexual overtones.
But, so basically, the helmet that the Professor X is now wearing is the new version of Cerebro. It
makes sense.
Mobile.
I don't know why no one thought to do that earlier. That makes a lot of sense when you say it out loud.
So basically, what you find out is
Okay, but what's with the wetsuit he's wearing? Is that just a personal choice?
I think that's a personal choice.
Okay.
They really haven't.
I didn't know there's a
mentioned it.
backstory of like he realized his hips were so beautiful that he wanted to show them to mutant kind. Surely you
look.
can't hate someone with hips that don't lie.
Yeah, Professor X, those hips don't
I saw
lie.
the X-Men there. It looks like there's a lot of like supplementary information.
Yeah.
in
Oh,
this.
be prepared when you read this to read a lot of graphs, timelines, and layouts.
I know that doesn't sound like it should be enticing, but it's genuinely making me more excited.
No, it's awesome because again, it's one of those things where you can tell that Hickman is enjoying building this world.
So is this only for like this big special edition, or did the comic trades come out with these graphs?
No, these were in the comics.
Wow.
Because this was a 12-issue miniseries that came out last year in like October through December.
I heard like Kitty Pryde was basically a pirate at some point.
She's a pirate in Marauders. That's a series
That's
that
pretty
comes
cool.
out after this. So basically, before any of the new X-Men titles came out, House of X, Powers
Sort of
of
set
10
the new
set the
standard.
tone. This is the foundation for the new
This
X-Men.
is their new
you
Bible.
You can take a look at.
Wow, that is heavier than I expected.
Yeah, it's 422 pages of amazing goodness. The
art
art
on
is
it
great.
Yeah, this art and color is
Pepe Larraz is awesome.
The black and red coloring on this is like a really. It's not what you'd expect from X-Men, but it looks wow. Oh my
Yeah.
god! Even underneath the sleeve, it looks beautiful.
I know, right? It's so freaking
This
cool.
is genuinely so good looking. I would get it just for my coffee table, but it looks so. He's definitely. I have to say, he either is a graphic designer or knows someone who is, because this is the most visually appealing, like opening papers I've ever seen in my life, or table of contents. Like this is like design porn.
No,
Wow.
it is. It's incredibly amazing to look at. So
I'm getting a little turned on. I don't know if it's what I was drinking, or if it's because of this, or if it's because it's the middle of the summer in Oklahoma, but sorry, the house Xavier built, I read the house Xavier's butts. That L looked like another T.
Well, I mean, he can produce any mental image in your mind, so.
Is that man naked? The Savage Lands, never mind, probably naked. That does make more sense.
Yeah. So basically, it opens with Professor X sending a mind blast to the entire world, every human on the planet, saying, "We have now established a X-Men, or a mutant nation on the island of Krakoa,
I know the name.
and all mutants are allowed to are now considered Krakoan citizens and are allowed to pass through these portals that have sprouted up from plants of Krakoa."
That's super weird, but really cool.
And the thing is that you
Was that the plants that were in the opening pages that they're planting or something?
Yes, those are the
Okay.
portals. They're in a bunch of different major countries around the globe.
I love
like
these
there's
designs here for like their language.
Yeah, and they also classify mutants now. He actually builds a classification system.
I know that sounds dumb, but it's so organized and it makes me so happy.
Oh, dude! Yeah, if you like organization, this is
It's like a little bit of weird OCD. Oh, they have they even have topographical maps of everything.
Oh
They
yeah,
thought
Hickman.
this through.
Yeah, Hickman was
This
like,
guy's a
I
super
came.
nerd.
Yeah, he's like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this great. But basically, the whole book is Xavier establishing the nation of Krakoa.
I'm literally, while you're saying this, I'm literally pulling up my computer and ordering this on Amazon.
So he sends out a blast and says, "Hey, all mutants are allowed here, and you have to recognize our sovereignty. If you don't, we'll have issues." In exchange for recognizing us as a nation, though, we have special drugs that will enhance human life, heal humans. Again, the only price that we ask is that you recognize our sovereignty and leave us alone.
That makes sense. Mutants would have a lot more to offer. Also, what should I specifically type in? I have X-Men.
X-Men, I would just say House of X, and it should pop up. And the only thing, it's that very first hardcover.
Wow, beautiful.
And again,
ordering it now.
It's worth it.
I'm adding it to my cart. Yes, hardcover. I'm an American after all.
Yeah. But you find out that like Magneto is working for him. Emma Frost comes in.
So him and Magneto stopped playing chess and were like, we can be friends.
Exactly.
The pawns go first.
And Jean Grey is back in her classic costume.
Isn't there at some point like a younger Jean Grey is there as well?
There was that. See, that was what was taking place beforehand.
So I remember that like Iceman showed up, but he was like, "Hey, I would have been gay if I would have been okay with it." And so, adult Bobby is straight instead of closeted. He's just I like women, and then young Bobby's like, "But I like dudes." I'm like, I don't know how this works.
Yeah, they have
time travel is weird.
They do have young Iceman in here, and he is gay. basically.
So wait, old Iceman, what happened to him?
He's gone. He's gone.
He melted. He was outside too long.
I think he died in an older story. I'm not sure. This is the first time I've really jumped back into X-Men.
That was like the only context I had was like Jean Grey saw other Jean Grey and she was like, huh. He's like, yeah, we're gonna like sleep with a guy and he's gonna cheat on us with someone, but we hook up with an old Canadian. It's like, okay, my life sounds weird. It's like, wait till you get possessed by an entity from space.
Exactly.
She's like, I don't want to go through puberty anymore. It's like, you don't. You really don't.
And one of the coolest things that they tease in this first issue is that the Fantastic Four and X-Men will have disagreements, which is happening right now in a miniseries called X-Men and Fantastic Four, because Franklin Richards, the Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm's son, is an Omega level mutant.
Mutant. Yeah, that makes sense because it wasn't radiation that gave him his power.
Yeah, so
can't he control reality?
Yeah, he can create He can create realities out of
that.
Nothing.
Is. How do you deal with the character with that level of powers? There's no real feasible.
Well, and Hickman is acknowledging that right now.
I'm literally like salivating at this art that I'm seeing. Like the designs, the logos, the costumes, the languages, the graphs. This is genuinely like.
Yeah, see, here's like something that talks about Omega level mutants. See, Franklin Richards, reality manipulation, universal.
Shows their alliances. Yeah. This is like a Wikipedia that comes with.
Oh, it's incredible.
Wait, go back one more page. What was that weird night face looking character? It looked like he was like a robot mech guy. Yeah.
So basically,
it looks like he's from
there's
Destiny.
2 timelines.
Okay.
There's
That's
House of X is the present. Powers of 10 is 100 years in the future.
Okay.
So this covers that mech guy. Versions? Yeah.
Okay.
And that mech guy is Nimrod. He's
not a great name because that's an insult nowadays.
Right.
Way to go, Nimrod.
Yeah.
I guess maybe
he's basically a future version of Sentinels.
Oh, so does he hate mutants or is it gone full circle and now he likes them?
They still hate mutants. Basically, it's Fair enough. This is what will happen probably in the near future.
So is the future timeline, is that like a this will happen continuity, like it's 2 stories taking place, or is it a could be timeline?
That's the thing, we don't know.
Okay, I like that.
And that's what X-Men's trying to and basically you find out, so the biggest thing out of this, because obviously I don't want to give everything away because I want you to read it, but this happens within the second issue. You find out that Maura McTaggart is a mutant.
I literally just placed my order. It'll be delivered June 8th. Boom.
Nice.
Jonathan Hickman. Wait, I can follow Jonathan Hickman. Oh yeah, he does have a goatee. I can get updates when he releases new stuff. No thanks, my wallet doesn't need that.
And the first 6 issues of X-Men have been released as well in a trade.
See, now, when my wife complains, I'm pointing the finger specifically to this podcast, but just so she can see that it was you tempting me. I'm going to go ahead and say it. How old are Professor X and Magneto supposed to be? Because Magneto looks ripped and kind of hot.
They don't go into that because Marvel Comics usually tries to avoid
Fair enough.
ages just because...
Because they were like a big aspect, like you can't really update Magneto. He was in an internment camp. That's a very clear point in time.
Well, and you can always, with the mutants, say, well, part of their mutant power is longer life.
Okay, so he has, like, white hair, so he's...
Yeah, he's still
he's a
old
silver
classic.
Fox.
Yeah,
he's
still
just
old
built
Magneto.
like a supermodel from, like, the neck... Well, he doesn't have wrinkles. He just has white hair and a great body, so... Wow, that is a cool design for that Nimrod character.
Oh, again, the designs are amazing.
Is Beast in this at all?
Beast is in this.
Okay.
I like Hank. He ends up being the head of, like, the mutant CIA, which is basically X-Force.
At what point are they like, hey, welcome to our island, we've given you safety, now bone?
That's later. You find out that...
I like how you're just like, that's later, hang on.
That's at the end of the book.
That's the reward.
But Apocalypse is in this, and he's now part of the New Mutant Nation of Krakoa.
Wow. That's kind of a huge deal.
It's so cool, because again, part of it is just seeing them set up this nation, but the big thing is...
Does Namor ever factor in? Because Namor is really rapey, and no one has addressed that in Marvel Comics.
I want to say that they like go there, and Namor's like, just get out of here.
Because I know that he messed with the X-Men, they're like, stop trying to kill the world. It's like, only if I get to sleep with Jean. They're like, no. And he's like, well, the Fantastic Four will stop you. Like, only if I get to sleep with Sue. And you're like, stop demanding sex. That's not okay.
No,
Even in the 90s, we know that.
Basically, they go to Namor, I think, at one point, because I know he
he's
does
just
show
in a
up,
G-string.
and he just goes, "Get out of here. I live here now. I don't want to be a part of your weird mutant cult."
Every human has a restraining order against me. I can only live in the bottom of the ocean.
But the biggest thing is, and you'll notice this, is that it begins to feel very culty. It has this very cultish vibe, like something feels a little
like,
off.
Hello, brother. Yes, brother.
Yeah, like, and what are we? Mutant! And everyone's raising their fist and like...
Really cool, like, art, but yeah, definitely... Oh, is that a giant rock hand? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because
is Colossus in this? I'm a big Colossus
fan. Does come in later.
Okay, is he in any comic books right now? Because
he's in X-Force. He basically
is X-Force connected to this? Because X-Force has been sort of hit and miss.
Anything that's coming out
X,
now is connected to this. Marauders, which is where Kitty Pryde comes into play. The main X-Men book, obviously. New Mutants. X-Force and Excalibur, all of them.
That's a great name. What is Excalibur about?
I haven't really read it. It's got a little bit more fantasy about it. It focuses on Apocalypse.
With the name like Excalibur.
Yeah.
Is Apocalypse like a good-ish guy now, or?
Yeah, basically, here he comes.
Because he looks great.
Yeah, he basically comes. He's like,
he's like, I'm a mutant too.
Yeah, basically he's condescending, and they're all like, you can be here. As long as you're not a jerk. He's like, well, of course I'm not. This is what I've wanted all along.
It's like, yeah, but we didn't have to destroy the world to do it, so not to brag. Oh, they had manta rays in that comic. They were underwater for some reason.
And then Emma Frost uses the Hellfire Trading Company to ship all of their drugs to everyone. So, because you find out Xavier's
it's like pharmaceutical drugs, not like... I can't even feel my legs, man.
But in the countries that won't allow...
there's like knockoffs?
They go on the black market, basically. So Xavier's doing illegitimate and legitimate dealings.
That's such an interesting twist. This is like really cool. This isn't like a retread of previous ideas. This is
I think this is the Namor one.
I recognize the rapey
please
eyebrows.
Come home, and he's like... No, go away.
At least he has armbands on now. That's more clothes than I've ever seen him wear in a comic issue.
Oh, it's hysterical. He's just like, go away.
So is Namor a mutant, or is he just an aquatic
He is a mutant, but again...
Can we kick him out of mutant kind?
Basically, he's like, I don't care. I don't want to be a part of your boy band or whatever. So you have the Quiet Council, which is basically the government of Krakoa.
That is really cool.
They basically have 12 people on it.
They have more, I want to point out, they put more thought into this fictional government than our current government puts into, everything they do.
Oh, yeah, it's insane.
They're like, well, this is the reason why we should do this, instead of just we chose to.
Oh, Mr. Sinister's in this, by the way.
Really?
And it's hysterical.
Do they ever mention, Deadpool or anything? Or is there, he's too outside of the vibe?
They haven't really, I think they addressed it in his comic, but even then it was more of just he's like,
a throwaway joke type
I'm
of
doing
deal?
my own thing, yeah.
I figured he wouldn't mesh well with this genre.
He wouldn't.
He'd be like, chimichanga butts.
No, and he'd probably come in and be like, why are you guys acting all creepy and weird? This isn't...
They're like, don't you want to have weird sex? And like, well, maybe.
So basically,
I'm a deviant.
You find out that there's a quiet council set up with 14 people, actually. And 3 people will each, except for the last 2, which is Krakoa and Cypher, who basically translates for Krakoa because his mutant powers that he can...
So Krakoa is the island, but it speaks.
It's sentient, yeah.
Okay.
And he speaks for it. So basically
he isn't an island. It's not like a second island translating for the...
He's a regular person.
He's a person,
his mutant powers that he can translate and understand all languages.
Oh, can you imagine how employable that guy is?
Oh, exactly.
That's such a boring adult takeaway from an X-Men's
basically,
comic.
the mutants kind of have a thing where, we'll protect you, Krakoa, and you protect us. So that kind of thing. But basically,
Is it weird that he's letting a lot of mutants have sex on his face?
No, because, again, islands do things later on in the book.
Oh, yeah, he's like, eventually it will be my
That's
time.
in, the 3rd issue of the main X-Men series, you see that, so, yeah.
That's going to be weird to watch. I always... it's like watching The Rock have sex, but it's actually watching a rock have sex.
It really is. So, they have it to where each season, 3 people will be in charge of Krakoa.
So no one person can...
Yeah.
That's smart. Why don't we do that in real life? Oh my god,
It's kind of like presidential terms, except in seasons instead of what is it? Like years. Like Sabretooth is in here. They established the 3 laws of Krakoa, which is make more mutants, murder no man, and respect the sacred land.
That's like the Boy Scout, like leave the place cleaner than when you got there. Less talk about sex in the Boy Scouts, obviously.
And they don't want to do any harm to mutants, but obviously they will punish you if you're...
Well, also, like, I imagine if they're, like... Do they still do missions and, like, the like, where they just go out and, like, save an astronaut?
They do a mission in here that is actually really heartbreaking. I won't spoil it.
Oh, boy.
Also...
Come June 8th, I'm going to be crying.
Yes. And also, you find out that X-Men have mastered a way to bring people back to life.
I saw... Because I was a part of the X-Men subreddit for a while, and then they started talking about things that made no sense to me anymore, so I eventually was like, I have to leave, because I'll either read this and have this spoiled for me, or it's not relevant. And at one point, like, oh no, this character's gone, and then there's just like a sack at the bottom of a tree. It's like, and it's like, here's that character again. And we're like, do the rest of the X-Men know that they can just, pull a matrix and open a sack and there's a person?
Yeah, here's the implied orgy scene, because you see everyone giving each other like these glances.
That is the most like sexually charged collection of glances.
I mean, like even Emma Frost's face right there in that panel, she's just like,
and then it all ends with fireworks.
Yeah, exactly.
Wink, wink.
They're having a rave and stuff, and Apocalypse is just sitting there like, yep.
Wish I could get some.
Yeah,
but I'm a big blue boy.
So, and again, the future stuff is very important. And
so does it just intercuts in between?
Yeah, so basically it goes from a House of X, it starts with House of X #1, then it goes to Powers of 10 #1, and then keeps doing that until you get to the end.
So Powers of 10 is the future, House of X is now, and
correct.
The story, while not like directly like, I open a door and Man in the Future's on the other side, it's like they do something and thematically or somehow it connects to...
Mm-hmm. So basically House of X will be the present day stuff, and then Powers of 10 is where it jumps around a little bit in time.
Oh wow, you weren't kidding. That's literally like the original like 70 or like 60s and 70s Jean Grey out. I thought you meant like her spandex. It's like she has the like almost the old school like the pointy glasses and the green dress and the gloves that look like she's gonna clean a bathroom.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And again, Moira McTaggart is a huge part of this now in terms of her new mutant power.
Honestly, normally I'd say that's weird, but having seen how like someone could write a master's thesis about the research done on this, I can't imagine they just did it because that'll be a good twist. Like they probably have great reasons.
And Moira basically becomes one of the most important mutants now.
That's an interesting because
her mutant power. Again, this is revealed early on.
I remember you mentioned it to me at one point. She's sort of able to reincarnate, but she has to reincarnate. She has to reach maturity where that generation's mutation happens. Because if she gets killed when she's like 5 and she hasn't developed it yet, then she's Dunsky forever.
Exactly.
And I believe you had implied, or said that it's either outright said or implied that she has
many lives.
Wow.
Yeah.
That she has a finite number of regenerations, but she doesn't know how many. Is
exactly.
That correct?
Exactly. She doesn't know how many she's got left.
That's interesting. That's a good twist for like any character.
Yeah. It's incredible.
And reincarnation with a lot of. I like when you have a great power, but you have a lot of like clear rules you have to follow, or else it's not effective.
Yeah,
it's like it's not a weakness. It's like, it's just it makes you not where you have no reason to worry about the situation you're in.
Right, exactly, and again, it also very much implies, like how crazy and sinister things are getting because of her involvement with Professor X. And what's going on.
So she's sort of influencing him, or...
Kind of. She's like she's the Emperor to his Darth Vader, almost, for lack of a better analogy, where she's the...
Where he's doing things, but it's sort of her grand plan that's...
Yeah. So, and again...
For better or for worse.
The future stuff influences the reasons for that. I'm not going to spoil it. It's awesome,
I just have to say, as like an X-Men fan, I remember as a kid being like, man... Like, as a teenager, obviously, a lot of the mutations are an analogy for going through puberty and, like, discovering who you are. And I was like, man, that already is hard. If I woke up and I turned into, like, an actual, like, monster-looking person, that would be difficult. And then you go to a school where you're going to be picked on and then maybe die someday. But now it's like, hey, even if you die in, a child army, you get to bone on your own island where everyone is hot. I'm like, well, if you're gonna die, that's a way better out. Like, my parents don't love me anymore. However, this cult of insane people want me to go have island sex. That sure beats living in a gutter.
Yeah, and it's so cool how
There's a lot of world building going on.
oh yeah, and it's still going on. Like in the fourth issue of the main X-Men series, like it shows Xavier going to talk with like the representatives of the countries that haven't
Allowed their mutants.
allowed them, and they're also like, and the ones that have are like, okay, so you got some pretty powerful guys just chilling on your island. How do we know you're not just gonna want to come in and like invade us if we do something you don't like? And all that. It's really interesting, and it's kind of cool to see Xavier go, you know what, enough is enough. I did my school.
Yeah, he's like, I played nice. I played by your rules.
Yeah, and he's still, and it's cool because you still see him struggling so hard to try to still maintain that dream of, but I believe we can be peaceful.
Yeah, like one day we won't have to live on our own island. We can just live.
Yeah, and even if we have to live on our own island, the world won't be so scared of us. The world won't hate us so much.
I feel like there'd be a pretty good excuse for, like, we have teleporters and stuff. Just Nightcrawler, go jump to those places. Be like, is anyone here secretly a mutant? I will take you back to the sex island.
Well, and it's cool with Nightcrawler because obviously he's religious.
He is religious.
And they actually go into that. So they really delve into like the whole resurrection thing and everything. And basically they're implying that he might become like a mutant priest for Krakoa, like the Pope.
The mutant Pope who looks like the devil.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just, again, it's so cool with all that forethought, and there is stuff brewing, and again, it has a little bit of a Terminator vibe in terms of the future stuff that they're trying to avoid.
You can ask my brother, who had to listen to me talk about Terminator for years when we were roommates. I have 3 art books for 3 different Terminator movies, and only like one of them is a good Terminator movie. I loved the concept art and the ideas that didn't make it to screen. I'm like, why didn't you make that the movie? So I love the time travel hijinks and shirtless Austrian bodybuilders and like, 90s fullness.
There's no shirtless Austrian bodybuilders.
I'll accept Colossus as a surrogate.
Or even
he's a big Russian. Yeah, that's true.
Beast.
Between the two of them.
But the different thing with that is that it's not so much that it's not so much like Terminator where they're like guessing what the future is, but they're very much like, okay, what steps do we need to take to change it? And again, without spoiling much, it's just so good. And again,
I have to wait. Oh, it's actually only 2 days that I have to wait. That's not bad.
Amazon Prime, man.
I know, it's totally worth it.
It is.
Sponsored by Amazon Prime. We're not, but boy, I would be happy to be.
Jeff Bezos, give this man some money.
I use their service enough. It's way better than buying a book or renting a book from the school. Like, they have way better prices. I'm genuinely turning into a commercial. X-Men, sex, priests. I remember seeing an interview with the people. I think it might have been Stan Lee even, from like a DVD extra from an X-Men movie, because I had too much free time as a child and not enough friends. That like he thought that it was funny and kind of, well, not funny, but clever and a nice characterization that the guy who's so religious, even though there's clearly proof of like mutations and their evolution and alternate realities and magic, and he's still like a devout Christian, and he's persecuted both for his religion and how he looks and the fact that he looks like the devil while maintaining that faith. I was like, man, a lot of thought went into this. And then you see some of his other ones like, he learned to sew. And you're like, that's not an ability, Stan. That's a hobby or like a life skill.
Yeah, they're bilingual. Wow, so they got Rosetta Stone.
It's like you file your taxes. He knows how to make his bed. He's really good at balancing his nutrition.
He makes one killer omelet.
Yeah, those are like skills at best. Like, those are things you put on like a dating app. Like, I'm really good at sewing and cooking.
Right.
Like, you don't put that on your superhero. Oh my gosh, there would definitely be a superhero version of like Tinder, either for hooking up or for like, I need a superhero team or a supervillain team.
Actually, they're in Nick Spencer's Ant-Man series. There is a villain app where it's like you can hire goons based on the job.
The Harley Quinn show has the same thing. I just realized Harley Quinn has like a LinkedIn and the Harley Quinn TV like animated show Harley Quinn's like, I'm my own guy. I need to hire my own goons, and no one wants to work for her because she doesn't have enough stars and ratings as a crime lord yet. And
That's awesome.
the Joker keeps like review bombing her. He's so petty.
That's
like honestly,
awesome.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that like obviously I like the Joker enough that I wrote a short story involving him, but that was more just to answer a question stuck in my brain and like to exorcise a demon. And I didn't want to see the Joker movie. Like, I'm fine with being depressed on my own. I don't need a clown to remind me that the world sucks.
Right.
And especially, like, nowadays. I'm like, oh, I have a negative thoughts. Like, show me Aquaman again. I want to be happy.
Right.
But that version with Alan Tudyk voicing him, the most petty, awful, scummy, irredeemably terrible version of the Joker I've ever seen in any medium, and I hate his guts. Alan Tudyk does a great job. I'm not saying the character's done poorly. I'm saying... like, Mark Hamill's Joker, you're like, boy, what a bad fella. I still kind of like watching him be a bad guy, except for, like, the Killing Joke or something. Like, a few stories. And this one, just everything the Joker does from, like, 5 episodes in onward, you're like, I hate this guy. In a comedy, I'm mad.
Right. Man.
Cartoons and comics are weird. I got away from review bombing superhero Tinder to how much I... really don't like that version of Joker. You should check it out if you ever get a chance.
I will, especially now that the first season's on DVD.
I was going to say wait for like a year when HBO Max absorbs the DC streaming app inevitably, and you can just watch it all in one place. The fact they put the Snyder Cut on that instead of the DC app says that they know where the future is. It's like, there's a lot of DC comic stuff that's pretty cool, but I also maybe want to watch like Watchmen and Westworld. Like, put it all in one place. It's a pandemic. I'm not going to pay for both. What am I, Bill Gates? Paying for streaming services?
You can only afford so many people.
I just bought a huge comic book, like, on a podcast, because you influenced me. You're the cult leader. Oh my gosh, you're Nightcrawler. You're influencing me to move to your sex cult island to continue your drug trade.
No, it's comic trade. I have black market... comic deals going down.
You just go back to your house and Hickey's over. You get another buyer? I did. Great.
I got another one for you, Johnny.
Alright, remember the first one's free. Then you get them hooked on the graphic novels.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because Hickman created like the Black Order that you saw in Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame.
Oh, yeah.
He created those. I have the comic of that.
Those are really cool characters, too.
Yeah, no.
Not super utilized. It's a very big, like, both movies are jammed to the gills.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of room for more of it, but they were unfortunately such cool characters that makes you want to see more of them.
Yeah.
Which is a good problem to have, I guess.
Well, and especially like Ebony Maw, they nailed perfectly because they
got him. Is that the Squidward guy?
Yeah.
I liked the big hulking looking guy.
Obsidian.
He had a really cool design.
Black Obsidian, yeah.
And a lot of them had really cool. They were all pretty genuinely rad.
He does die in the comic, though. Rowan the Accuser smashes his head in with a hammer.
Wow.
Oh, it's amazing because Rowan's literally like, he's like, Obsidian's like, who are you, little man? Because in the comic he can talk English. And Rowan's like, I am an accuser, and you have been found judged and guilty. And he smashes his head down with his hammer, and you're like, oh!
All I see whenever I see Ronan the Accuser, I just think of Legolas's dad from the Hobbit movie.
Oh, I know.
Since it's the same guy, all I see is like Captain Sexy Pants with his eyeliner and his flowing, like, maybe it's Maybelline hair.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that guy went on a religious and probably racist crusade across space. And in this one, he's just like, I don't want my son or any other elves dating dwarves.
Yeah, right.
And he's just like, he makes Orlando Bloom's character seem so, like, tough and manly. He's just like, I'm too fabulous to go to war, and when I go, we'll all be in shiny armor.
On my elk. I don't even ride a horse.
I'm gonna say it as a straight man, I totally saw the appeal there. He shows up on like a glowing elk in the middle of a magic world. His eyeliner's working, his hair's going. I'm like, this guy, he put on his full outfit. They were ready to roll out like half a movie beforehand. But he's like, I'm not ready, alright? This blush isn't gonna apply itself.
For real.
I would genuinely believe that Tolkien expanded the world of elves to include their pharmaceutical like makeup. Like, I think Hickman and Tolkien were both like, it may not matter to a lot of people, but it matters to me, because if I was going to move to this universe, it needs to be just as well thought out, if not better than the real world I'm in.
Yeah. Well, and what's cool is this feels still part of the main comic universe. Like, it doesn't feel disconnected.
That's
Like,
really cool.
again, the Fantastic Fours and cameos in this.
It's cool to see them again.
Yeah, they're referenced in other stuff.
This might get me back into Marvel Comics, because for a while I was put off, and then I thought they were a joke. Like, it was either DC or Marvel. They had, like, the characters were like, I'm kind of an overweight girl, and my backpack has magical things that come out of it. It was like Dora the Explorer.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And then there was like two twins that were non-gender specific, but the guy was pink and the girl was blue.
Oh, that's coming out.
Are you, like, the comics they're in are soon to release, or they're coming out?
I think they're soon to release that one.
Because that sounds like a garbage fire.
Yeah, but...
It sounds like something that people made completely out of touch, but like, I hear that the people that like this stuff buy things. Make them a comic.
Yeah,
which X-Men already is their comic.
Right.
That's what it's an analogy for.
Yeah. Oh, I did hear that the writer for that is like a comedian, so he might be doing it in like
it could be the longest troll in the world.
Yeah, that's the thing.
If it turns out to be like a multi-issue troll, I will erect a statue in that person's name, because that's genius.
Yeah.
But if someone like straight-faced went to a board and was like, this will move copies, I'll be like, yes, when people hate read it to type up why it's dumb online. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is like even in the current Spider-Man comic by Nick Spencer, he references, because Jonah Jameson works for like a news company that's run by like a bunch of 5-year-olds, so they're like on the internet, but they're doing like clickbait stuff. Like they have those lists. They're like 6 ways to figure out if your girlfriend's a Skrull or not, and
oh my God.
top 10 ways to get in Krakoa even if you're not a mutant. So like this is like solidified as part of like, this is the Marvel universe now.
How old is Spider-Man right now? Is he an adult? Is he a teenager?
He's a mid-20s.
Okay, well, I didn't... It's like...
But he and Mary Jane are back together.
Okay, didn't she briefly work for Tony Stark or something?
Yeah, that was...
And then him and Doctor Strange took down Doctor Doom, or Doctor Doom helped? Doctor Doom went good for a while.
Yeah,
he Iron Man?
Infamous Iron Man, yeah. Basically,
how did that end?
I don't remember. I didn't read it,
I read, like, the first few issues, and then Ben Grimm showed up and, like, was a total douche. He was like, oh, is this old... art from Latveria? Crunch. Let me see Doom. I need to kill him. And he like tries to crush his skull inside of his Doom helmet. I was like, oh my God.
Basically, for me, from 2013 to 2017 was kind of like a lag time from Marvel, where really the only thing I was reading there was the Star Wars comic by Jason Aaron and then Karen Gillan.
They have some pretty good bounty hunter comics now for Star Wars.
Yeah, the Star Wars comics have been fun to read. That was the only thing I was reading. Only other thing that you would really want to read was Jason Aaron's Thor, because that's another run that went on for like 7 years as one big story. But other than that, for me, that was kind of like the lull years where there wasn't a lot going on. They had some internal problems at Marvel with higher-ups, and they put out way too many books with too few editors, so a lot of stuff was...
So it's like somewhere between 2014 and now, where they were like... They pushed out a whole new wave of heroes, which I wish more comic book companies did, where they just let people age. Mm-hmm. So like Batman existed 10 years ago, and he's 50 now, he's retired. Now someone else takes the role, because time happens.
Yeah.
I wish that was a continuity, at least. And they pushed out all these new characters, but they're all very pandery. And then when no one liked them, because they were clearly just made by a corporate board with, like, no soul, there was an email that got leaked, and it was like, people aren't buying these new comic books because, wow, and it was, like, blaming, like, women and minorities. I was like, that's the worst thing you can do after launching that. So I sort of was like, they were both trying to be woke, but doing it insincerely, so there was no level to really respect them on briefly.
Right.
And I was like, they're like, this is the Captain America of the future. Her name is America. I'm like, that's a stupid name in real life. Who does that? Like, she's a strong woman. Like, she's a teenager, which I get in Marvel, like, in comic book rules can be strong, but also a teenager. Not as cool as Captain America. Revamp a character that wasn't cool.
Yeah, again, you had a lot of that kind of stuff going on, but it's from 2017 to now, it's very much stabilized.
I mean, this sounds like...
Yeah, this kind of stuff's coming back. Because
I've been pretty hardcore DC for a while, but this threatens to pull me over the line to hop back into Marvel as well.
Now, if you want a standalone thing where heroes do age... Spider-Man Life Story by Chip Zdarsky. It actually examines Peter Parker growing to an old man, starting as Spider-Man in the 60s and growing to be an old man in the 2010s. It's a 6-issue miniseries that's collected in a regular trade, and each issue is a decade.
See, that
So
sounds...
like issue 2 is the 70s where like Captain America's in Vietnam.
Okay, that's cool.
And then the third issue is the 80s, and he references some of the big like Spider-Man stories of that decade. So
that's
like
really cool.
The 60s, he does like the big showdown with Green Goblin.
Wow.
The 70s, he does, I think, no, 90s was the Clone Saga. Oh, gosh. 80s.
I like Ben Reilly. It's not a good saga, but that's
it's not
cool
a good
character.
saga. I enjoyed the beginning
and I
of
like
it.
Kane, too, because he's edgy.
Yeah. They brought Kane back in 2013.
He was
actually.
Scarlet Spider, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember
have
reading
the
that for a
story.
while.
Spider Island is where they bring him back.
Wasn't
By
there
Dan
like an
Slott.
island cultist? There's a lot of weird island cultists with sex, but she was like, Spider-Man, you must be my mate! And she was like this really hot chick. And then he like gave birth to himself.
Yeah,
he turned into a giant spider and then birthed himself.
That was the 20...
Was that around the same time there was like the Ezekiel like spider totem?
that was J. Michael Straczynski's run.
That was a weird time to be a Spider-Man fan and just hop in and be like, what? It's magic?
Yeah.
He had sex on an island and now he gave birth to himself? I was like, I'm going to go back to watching the cartoons. This is too much for me.
Yeah, that was And then one
Comics
more day
are weird.
Yeah, comics can get weird, especially if you have writers that just... The big thing is sometimes they get writers that don't care about continuity and just want to do their own thing.
Which is why you just need Elseworld universes or stories that are like clearly visually defined as being a little different.
And that's why that's where I think DC has a little bit of a leg up on Marvel in that respect, because Marvel really doesn't have Elseworlds.
Yeah,
comics.
not really.
I mean, you have one every once in a while that comes out like a Spider-Man life story.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's like everything is continuity. If you're reading it, it's somewhere in the Marvel universe.
At some point, they're just going to connect the comics and the movies. And like the TV
now
shows.
that Kevin Feige is actually like the head of Marvel Comics now too, I wouldn't mind them. I've heard people suggest, what if they do like the Ultimate Universe, but it's the MCU, where it's like, okay, let's fill in the gaps and we can continue the stories of these characters outside of the Marvel Universe, where it's like you have an already established continuity where it's like, if you really don't know what's going on, you can just Redbox the DVD or probably watch it on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And you'll know exactly what you need to know, and then you can hop in and read whatever. So you can see like what Thor was doing in between Thor 1 and Thor 2, or...
Because sometimes they do like a comic book, like when Man of Steel came out, there was a prequel comic, but Zack Snyder had no hand in it. So
exactly.
That continuity is basically just a temporary placeholder for nerds.
Right.
Until they're like, no, we're changing the movie plans. Like, if it doesn't... It's like George Lucas used to say to Dave Filoni, if it's not in the movies, then it's not really canon. So when they were like, we're decanonizing the books, he's like, well, George pretty much already said that those were only canon until we decide they're not. So that wasn't a huge shake for him. And I was like, oh, that's actually kind of an interesting perspective. I never knew that George was already like, I'm actually...
Well, and that makes sense, too, because especially for a movie, you don't want to be beholden to some books that maybe 5 people have read or
although
whatever.
there were some amazing books that got cast aside.
Yeah.
That may come back now, because there are hints of Darth Revan coming back in a continuity. I mean, he is canon now, because he's...
reference in Rise of Skywalker's visual guide.
And like, there's a fleet named after him, and in the final episodes of... that takes place on Mandalore and the Clone Wars, there's art specifically about him in the background. You're like, so
awesome.
we're not even changing his look. He's still that. Like,
yeah.
There's no revamp.
Yeah, again, I'm happy that to go off on a tangent, I'm happy that they purged the EU. Like you said, there were some great stories there.
There were some bad ones, too.
There were some really bad ones. That, and it's just, there wouldn't have been any room to tell anything new.
There were some almost like Cthulhu stories where like giant planet-building... like society creating droids the size of like solar systems moving throughout the edges of space, creating reality. I'm like, that's trippy. And they're like, but at the same time, Watto's over here pod racing.
Yeah. Every background character had like a 3-novel arc.
Yeah. Like, here's Captain Panaka and his amazing... Actually, admittedly, I would totally read a James Bond-style novel about him. I take it back.
What, Captain Panaka of the Naboo Secret Service?
Yeah, I didn't even get to finish insulting it before I realized, no, actually, that'd be pretty rad. I just want them to just come out and have the balls to say, Jango Fett is a Mandalorian, no questions. Because in my heart, he is. if some kid can be rescued and he puts the helmet on and he's a Mandalorian, then Jango Fett can be a Mandalorian. So can Boba Fett. They're Mandalorians in my heart, and no one can take that away. Not even Mickey Mouse. Unless he pays me London.
Well, Dave Filoni did say that they're not with Clone Wars.
Did he say that they weren't or that they were?
Yeah, they confirmed in Clone Wars that that Jango Fett was a pretender.
I respectfully disagree.
That he stole the armor, which I mean, kind of makes Jango Fett even more of a
that he's like the type of guy that a Mandalorian would die to.
Yeah, that he was just that good, even though he got his head immediately chopped off by.
I mean, his jetpack got maimed, and he got too cocky.
See, that's why you have to rely on your skills, not your equipment.
And that's why Boba Fett's like, all right, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to charge down when I have a gun and he has a sword.
Now that you think about it, they both got doomed by their jetpacks, because Boba Fett gets his jetpacks.
You know 100% that's why George wrote it that way for Jango,
It's poetry, too. It's rhyme.
Wow, that made my brain wrinkle.
I just realized that. I was like, wait, they both get destroyed by their jetpacks.
Because, like, obviously we think of it chronologically of, like, the fictional world, but if they happened 30 years apart, he's like, I'll probably just kill his dad the same way. He'll be in sand, someone will accidentally bump his jetpack, and he'll die because of a Jedi in some way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, why not? Also, trade negotiations. You're like, no, don't do it.
Jar Jar Binks, he's going to be an integral part of the story.
I think at some point fans have to ask themselves, which is the devil they know that they preferred. They like not very well thought out stories that are beautiful and have really cool ideas that, again, haven't been fleshed out yet like the prequels originally weren't. So this could become like another prequel era, and I think it will be. Or trade negotiations and Jar Jar Binks. Because those were pretty bad.
Yeah.
At least the dialogue is better. Like, they got better dialogue. And the sets are beautiful, and the costumes are rad.
And the story, even if you don't like it, there is actually one there.
Yeah.
Unlike episode 1 that has, like, one plot point.
Yeah. Admittedly, I can still watch every prequel movie and have a good time. But it's just, like, it's like a movie that you know technically is bad, but you're like, I still like it. Like, I will fight to my death. Episode 3 is a good movie.
It's like I agree. It's like your dumb dog where you're like, oh, you're so dumb, but I love you so
You're barking at your own reflection, but I like you.
Yeah.
I have a very close relationship with a very large, very dumb dog that I very much care about. So that strikes me near and dear. Anyway, this has been our X-Men. Should have called it the Sex-Men. Dang it! Had this whole episode and I didn't do it.
Oh.
This has been the X-Men, sort of like, if you're like me and you didn't know anywhere to jump into, you've now been led by the Obi-Wan Kenobi of my comic book Sherpa, at least. He's the reason that I'm slowly bleeding money away on comic books. Yeah, I hope you had a good time joining it. This is again, I actually genuinely really did see this, like what he was saying so much that I bought it like 10 minutes into his description.
I watched him click.
I was like, is this the right one to order?
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely check some of these out. This is good comic book foundation, and what better about having comic book friends than hearing, no, that's a bad comic. You don't need to waste your money on that one. Because I tried to get into Spawn. I was like, I was of my era, and I never read it. I should give it a shot. That art is horrible.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like...
McFarlane. Although Greg Capullo, who worked on Batman with Scott Snyder, did some of that, too, later down the line.
I noticed the later ones actually looked good.
That's where he got his start, was doing Spawn, which makes sense why he was able to do Batman so perfectly.
Yeah, because, like, Spawn, bad comics, bad movie, great in Mortal Kombat, and such a cool character, he's still cool. But that art makes me feel like I'm sick at my stomach and I'm like in a car ride and I'm not
90s.
Like his version of a demon looks like an uglier Venom. The Joker is fat and he's like, oh no, I'm trying to rebuild my body, but I keep turning into a white guy, but I'm black and I'm the reason that my wife had a miscarriage. Life is bad. I'm like, we get it, dude. You're edgy. Oh my God. Tone it down. At one point, God and the devil get reincarnated as babies and they're trying to kill each other. And he's like, I became a god too. You're stuck on your own universe killing each other and I remade Earth. I'm like, cool. What next? Like, now I lost my powers. Character reset. I'm on a tangent. What I'm saying is it would have been nice to have someone stop, get in front of me and say, don't do it.
Yeah, just please put down
It's my mistake. I was playing Mortal Kombat. I was like, Spawn, I never actually read his comics. I bet they're good. And I made a mistake.
We have all done that, man.
I mean, yeah, it's just, you get involved in a comic, you're like, this will take off. And, like, I did it a few times with Marvel. I hopped in, and I was like, this looks interesting. This is a good thing. And, like, a few, issues in, you're like, what's happening? I don't like, what are they doing? Why am I wasting my money on this?
See, that was me with the Spider-Man Clone Saga. I got the first trade at my library, and I was like, oh, this is pretty... It starts off pretty interesting, but then by volume 3, it just... You can tell the writers are like, I have no idea how to end this.
My
it's
introduction
just,
to
clones! More clones!
My introduction to the clones was the animated series. And so, of course, I fondly remember it, but I also remember, like, at one point, Mary Jane melts into water because someone tricked them, and that wasn't really her. I was like, if that's what the comic was like, I'm glad that this was all I went through.
Oh my, it's awful. It's so bad.
I might force myself to go through it just so I can, like, have earned my birthright as a nerd to be like, no, I read it too. I'm sorry, I said nerd. I read it too.
It's 2 years of story.
Oh my god, never mind.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, you could tell, but like, again, the first volume, it's like, okay, you guys got a story here. That's interesting. By like volume 2 and 3, it's like, what are you doing? And then they're like, oh, no, we don't know. Norman Osborn was behind it all.
That's how I felt with when Superior Spider-Man happened. I was like, this is so stupid. By the end of it, I liked it.
Superior Spider-Man's great.
That was like the opposite, where I thought it was going to be dumb, and then it turned out really cool.
Yeah.
The working theory that one of my friends, she worked at a comic book shop, so I trusted her, because her working theory was just, Stan Lee's getting in his age. He's going to kill off Spider-Man. He's going to ruin Marvel Comics because he can't take them with him to the grave. I was like, oh my gosh, maybe you're right. And then I was like, no, she's unstable. She attacked me with claws and peanuts. Clearly, I should not be taking this so seriously. All right, well, this has been the Poppycock Podcast, where we talked about a lot of things, mostly X-Men and sex, and then it got onto other stories, but... Hope you took this information in. Now you know what comics to avoid or to hate read because you are a masochist and the world ending hasn't been stressful enough.
Right.
We hope you had a good time. And, keep an ear out. You might hear more of Adam's comic book hot takes because he has a plethora of comic book knowledge. He's the Obi-Wan to your life. Prepare yourselves. He's the Nightcrawler, teleporting into your world to tell you the good news about X-Men and to avoid those weird humans.
Yes.
Do not read those comics. The Clone Sagas, they're not good. And he's gone. Disappeared into the night to go creepily hook up with people that he saves the world with. There's got to be a lot of emotional issues with that. It'd be like the Playboy Mansion, but you trust them to be SEAL Team 6.
It's weird.
I'm definitely reading the crap out of this.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, be sure to tune in next time. I don't know what we'll talk about, but it'll happen.
It will.
Bye.
Bye.